paragraph page
Mm-hmm.
884. Okay, and
Mm-hmm.
our last headword was opposition, new word type of lesson.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's start with our revision. Let me just 884. Okay, let's start with revision.
Mm-hmm.
Ready? Okay, here we go.
Okay.
First question. What do we mean when we say that the chicken pecks the ground? What do we mean when we say that the chicken pecks the ground? When we say
Mm.
that a
When
chicken
we say
pecks the
that a
ground,
chicken picks the
we mean
ground,
that it picks up
we mean
food
that
from the
it picks
ground
up
with
food
its beak.
from the ground with its beak.
Very good. What do we call the block of hard clay that are commonly used to make buildings? What do we call the blocks of hard clay that are commonly used to make buildings? We call the blocks
We
of
call
hard clay
the blocks
that are
of hard
commonly
clay
used to
that
make
are commonly
buildings
used
bricks.
to make buildings bricks.
What else can we make from clay? What else can we make from clay? We can make plates,
We
cups,
can make plates,
etc.
cups,
from clay.
etc. from clay.
Very good. Why do the police sometimes block a road? Why do the police sometimes block a road? The police sometimes block a
The police
road
sometimes
because
block a road because they are searching a criminal.
very good. What is cream and where does it come from? What is cream and where does it come from? Cream is the
Mhm.
fatty part
Cream
of
is
milk
a fatty
or
part
anything
of milk
which looks or
or anything
feels similar
which
to it.
looks or feels similar to
Do
it.
you believe it's worth spending money on expensive face creams? Do you believe it's worth spending money on expensive face creams? Yes or no?
No,
I don't believe
I don't
it's
believe
worth spending money
it's worth spending
on
money
expensive face creams.
on expensive face creams.
Very good. Do you spring out of bed in the morning? Do you spring out of bed in the morning? Yes or no?
No,
I don't
I
spring
don't
out of
spring
bed in the morning.
out of the bed in the morning.
What are the three forms of spring? What are the three forms of spring? The three forms of spring
The three
are
forms
spring,
of springs
sprang, sprung.
are spring, sprang, sprung.
Very good. Can you feel the springs inside the mattress on your bed? Can you feel the springs inside the mattress on your bed? Yes or no?
Oh, yes,
I can
I
feel
can
the
feel
springs
the springs
inside the mattress
inside the
the on
mattress
my bed.
the, on my bed.
Very good. What are well known for having a curious nature? Are cats well known for having a curious nature? Yes, cats are well known
Yes, cats
for
are well
having a
known
curious nature.
for having a curious nature.
Very good. If you heard a curious noise outside your room in the middle of the night, would you stay in bed or go out and investigate? If you heard a curious noise outside your room in the middle of the night, would you stay in bed or go out and investigate? If I heard a
Mhm.
curious
If
noise
I heard a
outside my
curious
room
noise outside my
in the
room
middle of the night,
in the middle of the night,
I'd
I'd go and investigate.
investigate. Very good. What do we call a police officer who investigates crimes? What do we call a police officer who investigates crimes? We call
We
a
call
police
a
officer
police
who
officer
investigates crimes
who investigate crimes
a detective.
de- a detective.
Very good. Are you keen on sport? Are you keen on sport? Yes or no?
No,
I'm not
I'm
keen on
not
sport.
keen of sport.
Are young children nearly always keen to learn new things? Are young children nearly always keen to learn new things? Yes, young
Yes,
children
young
are
children
nearly
are
always
nearly always
keen to learn
keen to
new
learn
things.
new things.
Very good. About how many extra articles of clothing would you say the average person wore on a cold winter's day? About how many extra articles of clothing would you say the average person wore on a cold winter's day? I'd say
I'd
the
say
average
the
person
average
wore
person wore
about
about five articles,
Extra articles of
extra
clothing
articles of
on a
clothing
cold winter's
on a
day.
cold winter's day.
Wait, what kind of people write articles in newspapers? What kind of people write articles in newspapers? The kind of people
The kind of
who
people
write articles
who write
in
articles
newspapers
in
are
newspapers
professional
are
writers
professional
or
writers
people who
or
have
people
special
who have
knowledge
special
of
knowledge
particular
of
subjects.
particular subjects.
Right? If you work as a journalist, what kind of article would you like to write? If you work
Mhm.
as a journalist, what kind of articles would you like to write? If I
Mhm.
work
If I
as a
work
journalist,
as a
I'd
journalist,
like to write
I'd
about.
like to write about embarrassed issue articles.
Hmm, very good. What do we mean when we say that someone behaves boldly? What do we mean when we say that someone behaves boldly? When we say
When we
that
say
someone
that
behaves
someone
boldly,
behaves
we
boldly,
mean that
we mean
they
that
behave
they
courageously
behave courageously
or confidently
or
and
confidently
without
and
fear.
without fear.
Greg, do you think clothes in bold colors suit you? Do you think clothes in bold colors suit you? Yes or no?
Oh no,
I don't think
I don't
clothes
think
in
clothes
bold color
in bold
suit
color
me.
suit me.
Why do we sometimes type word in a document in bold? Why do we sometimes type a word in a document in bold? We sometimes
We sometimes
type a word
type a
in a
word
document
in a
in
document
bold
in
so
bold
that the word
so that the
is
word
more noticeable
is more
on
noticeable
the page.
on the page.
Very good. Okay, what am I doing? What am I doing? You're striking your pen
You are striking your
on the
pen
table.
on the table.
If you were struck by lightning and survived, would the experience change the way you felt about your life? If you were struck by lightning and survived, would the experience change the way you felt about your life? Yes or no?
No,
If I were
if
struck
I was struck
by lightning
by
and
lightning
survived,
and
the
survived,
experience
the
wouldn't
experience
change the way
wouldn't change the
I
way
felt about
I
my
felt
life.
about my life.
Where if you were on your way on a friend's birthday party and it suddenly struck you that you'd forgotten their present, would you go back and get it or would you just go without it? If you're on your way to a friend's birthday party and it suddenly struck
Mhm.
you that you've forgotten their present, would you go back and get it or would you just go without it? If I
Mhm.
were on
If I
my
were
way
on my
to
way
a friend's
to a friend's
birthday party
birthday
and
party
it suddenly
and it
struck
suddenly
me
struck
that
me
I'd
that
forgotten
I'd
their
forgotten
present,
their present,
I'd
I go back and
and
get
get
it.
it. Very good. If we describe a building as striking, what do we mean? If we describe a building as striking, what do we mean? If we describe
If you
a
describe
building as
a
striking,
building as
we
striking,
mean
we
that it
mean
is
that
interesting
it's
and
interesting
attracts
and
our
attracts
attention
our
because
attention
it looks different
because it looks different
from other buildings.
from other buildings.
Very good. Do you think that people who shoplift should be imprisoned?
Mhm.
Do you think people who shoplift should be imprisoned? Yes or no?
Oh, yes,
I think
I
people
think
who
people
shoplift
who shoplift
should be imprisoned.
should be imprisoned.
Very good. Is there a cure for the common cold? Is there a cure for the common cold? No, there
No,
isn't a
there
cure
isn't a cure
for the common cold.
for the common cold.
Greg, do you usually take a cold remedy to make you feel better when you have a cold? Do you usually take a cold remedy to make you feel better when you have a cold? Yes or no?
No,
I don't
I
usually
don't
take
usually
a cold
take
remedy
a cold
to
remedy
make me feel
to make
better
me feel
when
better
I have a cold.
when I have a cold.
Greg, what type of aircraft take off vertically? What type of aircraft take off vertically? Helicopters and
Helicopters
certain
and
special
certain
airplanes
special airplanes
take off
take
vertically.
off vertically.
Very good. Why do some people prefer to stay in woodwork rather than paint it? Why do some people prefer to stay in woodwork rather than paint it? Some people
Some people
prefer to stay in
prefer
woodwork
to stay
rather
footwork
than paint it
rather than paint it
because the woodwork
because the
looks more
woodwork
natural
looks more
if it
natural
is
if
stained.
it is stained.
Where if you discovered an ink stain on an article of clothing, how would you try to remove it? If you discovered an ink stain on an article of clothing, how would you try to remove it? If I
Hmm.
discovered
If I
an
discovered
ink stain
an ink
on
stain
an article
on article
of clothing,
of clothing,
I try to remove
I'd
it
try to
by.
remove it by washing it.
Very good. Okay. What does the word creep mean? What does the word creep mean? The word creep
The word
means
clip means
either to move
either to
forwards
move
very
forward
slowly
very
or to
slowly
move slowly
or to move
and
slowly
quietly
and
so that
quietly so
nobody
that
hears
nobody
you.
hears shoot.
Give me an example of each. Give me an example of each, please. The traffic
The
was
traffic
creeping
was
along
creeping
very
along
slowly,
very slowly
owing to the fact
owing to the
that
fact
several
that
roads
several
had
roads
been blocked by
had
the
been blocked
police.
but, hmm,
By the police.
by the police.
Elizabeth crept
Elizabeth crept
into the room
into the
so
room
as not to
so as
wake the
not
baby.
to wake the baby.
Very good. Okay, what does the word passage mean? What does the word passage mean? The word
The
passage
word
can mean
passage
a
can
long,
mean
narrow
a long,
space,
narrow space,
generally between
generally
two
between
buildings
two
or
buildings
inside a building,
or inside a
like
building,
a corridor.
like a corridor.
It can also mean
It can also
a
mean
short extract
a short
from a
extract
speech
from a
or a
speech
piece of writing.
or a piece of writing.
Very good. What am I pretending to do? What am I pretending to do? You're pretending
You are
to steer a
pretending
car.
steer a car.
And what do we call the thing I'm pretending to hold? And what do we call the thing I'm pretending to hold? We call the thing
We call the
you're
thing
pretending
you're
to hold
pretending to
a
hold
steering wheel.
a steering wheel.
Very good. What does the word aside mean? What does the word aside mean? The word
The
aside
word
means
aside
on
means
one side
on one
or
side
to one side.
or to one side.
Very good. Do you put money aside each month to save for any special purpose? Do you put
Mhm.
money aside each month to save for any special purpose? Yes or no?
Yes,
I put money
I put
aside
money
each month
aside each
to
month
save
to
for some
save
special
for
purpose.
some special purpose.
During an evening out with friends, would you have to take somebody aside from the rest of the group if you wanted to speak to them in private? During an evening out with friends, would you have to take somebody aside from the rest of the group if you wanted to speak to them in private? Yes. During
Yes,
an evening out
during an evening
with
out
friends,
with
I'd
friends,
have to take
I'd have
somebody
to take
aside
somebody
from the
aside
rest of the group
from the rest of
if
the
I
group
wanted to
if I
speak to
wanted
them
to speak to
in
them
private.
in private.
Very good. Okay, do naughty children at primary school always obey instructions that their teacher give them? Do naughty
Mhm.
children at primary school always obey instructions that their teacher give them? No. Naughty
No,
children
not the
at
children
primary school
at the pharmacy
don't
school
always
don't
obey
always
instructions
obey
that
instructions
their teachers
that their
give them.
teachers give them.
They sometimes
That sometimes
disobey them.
disobey them.
Very good. What do we have to stick to an envelope before we can post it? What do we have to stick on an envelope before we can post it? We have to stick
We have
a
to
stamp
stick a
on an
stamp
envelope
on an envelope
before we can post it.
before we can post it.
Very good. What do tailors use to fasten pieces of clothes together while they're sewing? What do tailors use to fasten pieces of clothes together while they're sewing? Tailors use
Tailors use
pins to
pins
fasten
to
pieces
fasten
of
pieces
cloth together
of cloth
while
together
they're sewing.
while they are sewing.
Very good. How do we stick notices on a notice board? How do we stick notices on a notice board? We stick
We
notices
stick
on
notices
a notice board
on a notice
by
board
using a drawing
by
pin.
using a drawing pin.
What are the three forms of stick? What are the three forms of stick? The three forms
The
of
three
stick
forms of
are stick,
stick
stuck,
are
stuck.
stick, stuck, stuck.
What do we mean when we say that somebody sticks to a plan? What do we mean when we say that somebody sticks to a plan? When we say
When we
that
say
somebody
that
sticks
somebody
to a plan,
sticks to a
we
plan,
mean that
we
they
mean that
refuse to
they
change
refuse to
their
change
plan
their plan
even when the
even
situation
when it's a
is
situation
difficult
is
or there
difficult
is
or
opposition
there is an opposition
to their ideas.
to their ideas.
Very good. Okay, so that's the end of our revision. Let's have new
Mhm.
word. Okay, very good. So let's start new work. Okay, repeat. Border.
Border.
Very good. Okay, listen. Border is a noun. It is a line that separates one country from another
Mm-hmm.
country, like the border. For example, there's a border between Scotland and England. Again, along the borders of a field, we find a hedge or a fence.
Mm-hmm.
Let's practice. Are the police allowed to follow a criminal across the borders of their own country into another country? Are the police allowed to follow a criminal across the borders of their own country into another country? No. The
No,
police aren't
the
allowed
police aren't allowed
to follow a
to
criminal
follow a criminal
across the borders
across the
of their
borders
own
of
country
their own countries
into another country.
into another country.
Very good. Which countries does your country share a border with? What country does your country share a border with? My country
My
doesn't
country
share a
doesn't
border
share a
with
border
any country.
with any country.
Very good. What do we generally find along the borders of a field? What do we generally find along the borders of a field? We generally find
We generally find
a hedge
a hedge
or
or
a fence
a fence
along the borders
along the
of
borders
a field.
of a field.
Very good. Do you prefer plain clothes? Oh, next repeat. Pattern.
Mm, pattern.
Very good. Okay, listen. Pattern is a noun. It means a
Mhm,
design made from repeated lines, shapes, or colors on a surface. For example, some people wear plain clothes. Some wear clothes with a pattern.
mhm,
Another meaning of the word pattern is a regular and repeated way in which something is
mhm,
done or happens.
mhm,
For example, the parents are responsible for setting the correct way of how kids behave, or the parents
mhm,
are responsible for setting the correct patterns of kids' behavior. Let's
mhm.
practice. Do you prefer plain clothes or clothes with patterns on them? Do you prefer plain clothes or clothes with patterns on them? I
Mhm.
prefer
I prefer plain clothes
than clothes
than
with
clothes
patterns on
with
them.
patterns on them.
Where do you think should who do you think should be more responsible for setting the correct pattern of behavior for children, parents or teachers? Who do you think
Mhm.
should be more responsible for setting the correct patterns of behavior for children, parents or teachers? I think
I think parents
should be more
should be
responsible
more
for
responsible
setting the
for
correct
setting the
patterns
correct
of
patterns
behavior for
of
children.
behavior for children.
Very good. Next, repeat financial.
Financial.
Very good. Okay, listen. Financial is an adjective. It is
Mm-hmm.
relating to money. For example,
Mm-hmm.
if you spend a lot of money, you'll have money problem. You'll have financial problems.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's practice. Do some people get into financial difficulties through spending too much on their credit cards? Do some people get into financial difficulties through spending too much on their credit card? Yes,
Yes,
some people
some
get
people
into
get into
financial difficulties
financial difficulties
through spending too
through
much
spending too
on
much
their credit cards.
on their credit card.
Very good. Next, repeat. We've woven.
We were woven.
Very good. Okay, listen. Weave is a verb which means to
Mm-hmm.
make something such as a cloth by
Mm-hmm.
crossing threads or other long pieces of material over and under each other.
Mm-hmm.
The three forms of weave are weave, wove, woven.
Mm-hmm.
For example, we can make a basket by weaving, or we can make
Mm-hmm.
cloth by weaving. Let's
Mm-hmm.
practice. What am I doing? What am I doing? You're weaving
You're
the first
weaving
finger
the first
of
finger
your right hand
of your right
over
hand
and under the
over and
fingers of
under the
your left
finger
hand.
of your left hand.
Very good. What are the three forms of weave? What are the three forms of weave? The three forms of
The three
weave
forms of weave
are weave,
are
wove,
weave,
woven.
wove, woven.
Very good. Okay, what kind of things can we make by weaving? What kind of things can we make by weaving? We can make cloth,
We can make clothes,
basket, etc.
baskets,
by
etc.
weaving.
by weaving.
Very good. Okay, now let's move on to reading.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so our reading is at stage 7, paragraph page 595. Last
Mm-hmm.
headword was for good. Idiom 11. Okay, please start at page 596. Wave,
Mm-hmm.
wavy, distance, rather than.
Okay. Wavy, distance rather than. What am I doing? You are waving your hand. What happens to the branch for a tree when it waves too much in the wind? When the branch of a tree, when it waves too much in the wind, it breaks and falls to the ground.